Hey guys, Prowl1701 here, and today we're going to be ranking some modern Doctor Who. So this is going to be the first of a video series. It will be 4 videos where we rank all of modern Doctor Who, the 2005 through the Church on Ruby Road. We're going to be ranking all of them from worst to best. Now, there are 150 stories on this list. Going by how I like to number them, like some people count Utopia, Sound of Drums, Last of the Time Lords all as a 3-parter. I count it Utopia by itself and then the other 2 as a 2-parter. Because Utopia and Sound of Drums, Last of the Time Lords, they vary drastically, so I do that. You know, some people count the girl who died and the woman who lived as the same story. Some people count them separately. As a matter of fact, I think they're officially numbered separately. I count them separately, but they do land consecutively on the list. So the way I do my numbering, it comes out to 150. We will be talking about the Church on Ruby Road. I debated whether or not to put it on the list, but I was at 149 spots. And adding it to the list rounded it out to a nice 150 the way I wanted. I was a little concerned because I don't know, since it's really the only story we have with Shooty and with Millie, if it was fair to put it on there. But, and it literally was the last one I placed. I finished the list and I had 149 and I was like, So I had to go back and figure out where it slotted in, which was actually really tricky and I almost didn't include it. But I've got a spot where it sits for now. It's going to be more interesting to go back and reevaluate where it'll fall after we've seen more of their era. But I have a place for it for now. It will be on the list. Also, there will be one mini episode on the list, Night of the Doctor. There's several good mini episodes that have been done for modern Doctor Who, but most of them don't feel essential, like you don't have to have them. But Night of the Doctor is essential watching. It's also really, really good. And I wanted to include this on the list. I felt like it deserved to be there. So Night of the Doctor will be included on this list as well. So we have 150 to get through. Part 1, we'll be talking about the bottom 40. So 150 through 111. Part 2 will be the next 40, 110 through 71. Part 3 will be the next 40, which is 70 through 31. And then the final video, we'll talk about the top 30 stories. So, for part 1, we're going to be talking about some rough ones today, because we're at the bottom 40, and there's some not so stellar episodes in Doctor Who, so there's going to be some negativity in this first video. You're going to have to bear with me. And I'm going to start at the bottom of the list with the worst story, not only of modern Doctor Who, but the worst story in Doctor Who. And we're talking about Kill the Moon. I talked about Kill the Moon before. It's terrible. It's terrible. I've never been able to get past the moon is an egg. Come again? You've lost me. The moon is an egg. But we've been to the future. The moon is still there. Ah, but when it hatches, it's going to leave behind an identical egg. There's not a flag big enough or red enough. This is also the story where the Doctor decides to stay out of it. He says, it's not my place, humans should make this decision. Because if there's one thing we know the Doctor definitely doesn't like to do, it's get involved. The Doctor hates getting involved. We know he's renowned for his ability to not get involved. So he sits on the sidelines and waits while Clara acts like, oh, man. Yeah, this one's bad. Also, the spiders look bad. Spider episodes don't really work for Doctor Who, do they? Yeah, this one is just absolute garbage. It's one of the worst pieces of television ever made. It's really, really bad. The whole moon is an egg thing is just so dumb. I don't know what the writer of this story does for a living, but I hope to God it's not writing. At least going by this story. Maybe they've done some good stuff, but not this story. It is easily the worst episode of Doctor Who ever made. And I could go on more about it, but I've done that a lot. And if you've seen my channel a lot, you know how much I hate this episode so much. Hate is the word. Now, next on the list, there's a few of them here that are battling it out for second worst, but we're going with Fear Her. I just don't get into Fear Her. The child actress isn't really impressing me. I don't know if that's her or if that's the director. That weird voice she talks through, it's like the alien talking through her, is like claws on a chalkboard, and dear God, I just want her to be quiet. Nothing against the actress. That voice is just really annoying. I find the story very boring and off-putting. It has that one nice little scene when the doctor talks about, oh, I was a father once, and Rosa's like, what? That was a cool little moment. Other than that, it's dumb. Also, the whole doctor carrying the torch thing. Why? Yeah, this one's bad. Fear Her is... Even the Russell T. Davies era can not succeed at times. Next on the list is Arachnids in the UK. And yes, we are to the Whittaker era. It is a terrible, terrible story. Again, spiders just don't seem to work in Doctor Who. You have the guy who's supposed to be Trump. I don't know why he's there. I really don't care about what the UK thinks about Donald Trump. That would be me telling people what I think of Margaret Thatcher. Don't do that. Why? Why should I? It doesn't make sense for it to be there. The whole plot with the spiders never really goes anywhere. I do like the one little scene when like the guy gets dragged down in the bathroom. That's pretty cool and creepy. I'll give it that. The Doctor's morality is really weird in this episode, which, to be fair, 13's morality is really weird a lot. But, like, she's like, no, you can't shoot it. Instead, you're going to let it suffocate to death, because the Trump guy, let's just call him that, was going to shoot it, give it a nice, quick, painless death. But no, no, you can't do that. Well, what's the matter with it? Oh, it's dying. Lungs can't support its weight. It's suffocating to death. Isn't this right after she'd just blown up a lot of them? Or locked them in a room where they'd all suffocate or something? I don't remember. Because the story's stupid. I don't pay that much attention. But her morality's all over the place, so... Yeah, this is another one that just never goes anywhere, does anything interesting. Again, this is another one you're like, how did this episode get made? I do not understand. Was it really just an excuse for the UK to say something about Trump? I don't care what the UK thinks of Donald Trump. To be fair, I don't care what most of the US thinks of Donald Trump. Don't people have something else to talk about? Let's talk about Doctor Who. Next on the list is Last Christmas. This one has just too many twists. It has more songs. It has more twists than the song Twist. It just keeps twisting and keeps twisting. Now, it would have been a great exit for Clara if that had actually been her exit. It would have been a great episode for her to leave with her being old. Would have been a phenomenal ending. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. I like having Michael Troughton in it. I like the line about, you made a horror movie called Alien? No wonder people keep invading you. It has 2 or 3 things going for it, but just... I was so disappointed with this one, I've never been able to go back and watch it again. I was so unhappy with it, and twist, and twist, and twist, and twist, and twist. And come on, is it over yet? Is it over yet? Is it over yet? I just did not like this one. This one can just shove off. It's easily my least favorite of the Christmas specials. And next on the list is Night Terrors. I just, once again... never got into this one. Is this the one where Amy gets turned into the doll? Because I guess that's a little chilling. The dolls in this one are a little chilling. And I think it has the kid with the powers of God, maybe. He has to flip the light switch. I don't really remember. I don't ever go back to this one. It's just... I don't know. Like I said, I think I've watched it once. You ever have those episodes that are just so bad, you're like, I need to give that another chance. And you're like... You get on the menu screen, you're looking at it, and you're like, No. No. I can't. I can't. I just can't. I can't. I just can't. And next on the list is the Timeless Children. Yeah, well, you know we had to reach this one sooner than later. There are so many things wrong with the Timeless Children. It's not just one thing, but let's talk about the retcon that didn't need to be there. There's no reason to go and destroy, what's it, 57 years of history, whatever it was up at that point, just to do your own thing with it. Because it once again reinforces that trope of a chosen one, and you have to be the chosen one. And if you're not chosen, well, then you're just not special. You're just ordinary. See, I like the idea of the Doctor in Classic Who just being this honestly below average Time Lord who left to go explore the universe just because he was bored and he wanted to go do something and have a little fun and see the universe, and just happened to get into these situations he had to get himself out of. I love that. That's great for me. The Doctor, anyone could be the Doctor. I could be the Doctor. I could decide to go explore and tour the world. I love that idea. But according to Modern Who, the Doctor is Jesus. The Doctor is the chosen one, the savior, the protector of the universe. He's Superman, basically. And I can't be the Doctor unless I was born to be the Doctor. I cannot be the Doctor. Only someone who is born to be chosen can be chosen. I hate that mentality. So I have that against it. I don't like the retcon for that. And let's be honest, they did, part of the reason was they did want to inject more diversity and inclusivity into the Doctor's background. And diversity and inclusivity is a good thing, let me be clear, but it feels so forced here that it just doesn't work. It does not work. It just feels forced. I cannot get behind it. I don't like the retcon. I don't like the fact that Russell is sticking with the retcon and embracing the retcon and making the Doctor an orphan. And I get the Doctor, you know, I've always liked the Doctor being a mystery. I don't like to know a lot about the Doctor's past. And in a way, this does make the Doctor more mysterious because you don't know where he's from. But for me, not knowing where you're from shouldn't be a problem. Like, I can't remember all the different things I'm descended from. My family knows. I don't care. I never look up my family tree because I don't care. They don't make me who I am. I'm me. You know, the Doctor is who he is because he's the Doctor. I don't care about his origin story. I never have. Or the mystery behind it. I never have. I don't need it fleshed out, but I don't need it referenced as a mystery box all the time either. So I never really liked that retcon. Also, I never quite understood all these progressive people who praise the Timeless Children, all these people on Twitter who praise it. Oh, it opens up the Doctor to diversity and inclusivity, and these are things we advocate. Okay, but here's another thing the Timeless Children does. It makes the Cybermen basically slaves to the Master. Again, the second time this has happened, where he basically takes control of the Cybermen, and the Cybermen become his slaves. An entire race of people, let's call them silver people, are made slaves to someone called Master. And no one has a problem with this. And keep in mind, this isn't an episode that aired in like 2020? 2020, is that right? 2020? No one has a problem in 2020 of a race of people being made slaves to a master. But yet people defend this episode because it's 21st century. These are the same people who try to tell me the Celestial Toy Maker is somehow racist. It isn't. These are the same people who talk about Classic Who as, well, OG Classic Who was kind of racist back in the day. Not compared to this, it wasn't. I can't think of a single moment in Classic Who that's as racist as this. No, Talons is not. Talons was cast exactly how casting was done at the time. Trust me, this, Timeless Children, far more racist than Talons, I can assure you. As someone who has seen both, I can assure you. So, I have a big problem with that, and that's the second time the Master or Missy has been put in charge of the silver people like that. But no one has a problem with it because, I don't know, maybe the people on Twitter who advocate this episode aren't sharp enough to make the connection. But yeah, that's a huge problem with this issue. Plus, it just in general doesn't get the Cybermen right. People in Modern Who typically does not get the Cybermen right. The Cybermen get screwed up a lot in Modern Who. I mean, the best decade for the Cybermen was the 60s, let's be clear. Where they had just banger after banger after banger, except for Wheel in Space, I hear. That's one of the 6 stories I haven't seen yet from Classic Who. But other than that, they're all good. 10th Planet, Moonbase, Tomb of the Cybermen, The Invasion, all good stories. All good stories. Revenge of the Cybermen, better than stuff Modern Who's putting out for the most part. Earthshock, classic. Attack of the Cybermen, classic. Silver Nemesis, underrated. Whereas the Modern series, really the only time anyone's gotten them right was their very first story, The Age of Steel 2-parter, which is really good. And it introduces these modern Cybermen in a way that makes sense because they're from a parallel Earth. So it makes sense why they would look and act different. And then World Enough in Time, which does them really well. Even though Part 2 doesn't quite live up to Part 1, it's still really good. But other than that, the Cybermen really are just kind of a generic stand-in army that gets defeated very easily or made slaves to the Master. Which people on Twitter apparently don't have a problem with. They're too busy telling me how racist the Celestial Toy Maker is. Also, it's so Deus Machina how they beat the Cybermen, blowing up the ship. It's like they press one button and the whole ship blows up. That's the problem when you... See, Classic Who, when they only had like 3 men in a suit, or 3 Daleks is all they could afford, sometimes stuff like that worked to their advantage. Not in Day of the Daleks, for sure. But sometimes because there was less of them to defeat, so they didn't quite have to Deus Machina everything. They still, in Classic Who, did a lot of Deus Machina, to be fair. But when you have Modern Who, where you have the ability to have these armies present, you have to, these deadly armies, you have to come up with ways to, okay, well, how do we defeat this deadly army? Well, we have to Deus Machina. We have to blow them all up in an explosion, usually a ship exploding. Which, again, Classic Who had a lot of ships exploding. But, it's just, you have this whole ship of them, and it seems like they hardly do anything to the ship, and the whole ship blows up. And then the one guy has to save the Doctor, because she can't press the button. She's over there going, I'll do it, I'll press the button. And then the other guy has to show up, and the guy who looks very much like Jesus has to show up and be like, just give me the, all right, get out of here, Doctor, I got it. Then he gets shot about 70,000 times and still manages to press the button. How? A muscle spasm maybe, but it reminds me a lot of that scene from the Suntaran 2-parter in Series 4, when Tennant's over there, I'll do it, I'll press the button, I'll do it. And the other guy has to show up and do it for him, the young kid. Sultar, ha! Because the Doctor is apparently a pansy in the Modern series. I'll do it. And I'm over here going, when? It's the same thing with Whittaker. I'm going to press it. Sure you are. She's just waiting for the guy to show up and do it for her, isn't she? So yeah, this one's just a mess all around. It's just really a mess all around. Plus, they wasted a good character in the Lone Cyberman. I really liked him. I would have liked to have seen more of him. They just wasted him. So yeah, it's a failure on so many levels. Possibly more levels than almost any other Doctor Who story. It's why it's ranked this low, rightfully so. Next on the list is the Battle of... whatever. It's just boring and forgettable. I've only watched it the one time. It's a whole situation set up because Whittaker bungled the ending of her first story, teleporting him away, and that's what sets up stuff here. To be fair to Whittaker, it's not the first time a Doctor has done something that kind of screwed themselves later on. The 9th Doctor did it with The Long Game and Parting of the Ways. The 4th Doctor did it with Face of Evil and An Unseen Adventure before that. The 3rd Doctor's adventure kind of set up the events that happened in Time Lash to a smaller degree. So that kind of happens. But it's really bad here. Also, Tim Shaw is not a convincing villain. He seems like he's defeated way too easy. It's so boring. I can forgive a lot of things in Doctor Who. I can't forgive boring and uninteresting. Like, you're sitting there going, well, what else about it did you like or not like? Prowl, I'll be honest, I don't remember most of it. I think it's a repressed memory. My mind was like, get that crap out of here. Get that crap out of here. Get that crap out of here. So yeah, it's ugh. Next on the list is It Takes You Away. I wish it would take itself away. Far, far away. This is the one with the frog, right? Like, there's some things in the story that work. The idea of there being some other kind of universe that's sentient, that can't interact with our own without disastrous results, is an interesting concept. Points for the concept. The execution is terrible. We have the blind daughter, played by a real blind actress, good casting, with the absentee father. We know what they were going for there. Some of the stuff with the mirror and the code words were kind of neat. The little area in between the dimensions seems like filler and doesn't need to be there and is uninteresting. The killer moss, none of that interests me. The bit when they get to the other universe, also boring. Grace is back, but not back. I mean, it's cool to see Graham having to deal with the grief of Grace, and I mean, Graham's the best part of Series 11, let's be honest. Definitely the most fleshed out of the companions, plus the actor playing him, whose mind is jumping out of my head at the moment, just plays him really, really well. He's a good actor. But the ending when she's talking to the frog, I'm like, okay. My attention is going, I'm going to click, where's the clock out button? There we go. Let me just slide my time card in here. It can take itself further away. Next on the list is Love and Monsters. It has ELO music, which is great. I love the ELO music. It's really good. I love ELO as a band. I have their greatest hits. I have the Xanadu soundtrack. Everything else in this episode sucks. Like, sucks. The casting doesn't really do much for me. The Absorb-A-Lot is a stupid creature idea. The design of it is laughably bad, which maybe may have been the point. I know a kid designed it. No offense to the kid. The guy who's playing kind of the main protagonist of the story, he's a very odd-looking fellow. No offense to him, he's an odd-looking fellow. His acting doesn't do much for me. This is another one of those episodes I'm like, you just needed a Dr. Light episode, didn't you, and threw this together. I don't even remember parts of it. Like, somebody was mentioning to me one time, they're like, remember that part when he got in an argument with Rosa's mom? And I'm like, was that in that episode? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, I don't remember that at all. And it's an episode I've seen more than once. I've probably seen it 2 or 3 times, but it was long ago. Long ago. Yeah, it's as bad as its reputation. I know there's some people who love it. They must be ELO fans. Other than that, I can't see why. And the next two, I'll just put them together, are the Pyramid at the End of the World and Lie of the Land. What the fuck is going on in these episodes? Like, they're just weird. I mean, I get it. The monks took over. They brainwashed everybody, but I don't care. Then you have the fake out regeneration, which I'm pretty sure they just filmed to use in the trailer for the season, or the series, whatever. Other than that, I don't know story-wise why it's done. I don't get into this one. I was a bit distracted when watching this one, especially, I think, the third part. I was texting with someone, either someone I was dating or someone I was talking with. It was a girl, I don't remember. So I think I was only half paying attention, but it was... Dude, I don't even know how to find words to talk about how uninterested I was in this. Like, people who think the Whittaker era, like, ruined Doctor Who, I'm like, I don't know. Some of those Capaldi stories are just as bad. I mean, Peter's always great in them, and I tend to like Series 10 as a whole, but these 2 parts, I like Extremis. It's much higher on the list. But these 2 parts just go nowhere and do nothing for me. They're completely uninteresting. Completely. Next on the list is The Hungry Earth and, was it Cold Blood? Is that the name? Yeah, Cold Blood. The episode that brought the Silurians back, and I almost wish it hadn't. I don't like their updated design. It looks too human, especially with the 2 human eyes. Because it's like they want to make the one Silurian look hot somehow. Like she's a Silurian, a lizard, but they want her to look hot because... I don't know. It doesn't work. The new design just does not work for me. I don't get into the story a lot either. I don't even know where to point to. Like at the beginning, how they see their future selves, but then later it's just Amy because time changed. I'm sitting there going, I have no emotional attachment to this. Is this the one where Rory dies? I forget. This might be the one where Rory dies. I don't remember. I just remember not liking it. I think I watched it twice, maybe 3 times. It had to at least be 3 times. I watched it when it aired. I watched it with one person I dated. I watched it with another person I dated. And it never grabbed me. It's another one of those, I'm like, I should go back and rewatch that sometime. No. I can think of better things to do with my time, even if it's nothing. Next on the list is Journey to the Center of the Tardis. I don't care for this one. I do not. It's probably the only one in Series 7B I just really can't stand. Again, I've only watched it the one time. I was going through a breakup at the time, I remember, on that one. Because I'd broken up with somebody right before Dinosaurs on a Spaceship. No, that's not right, because those aired at different times. I don't know why. I feel like I wasn't fully paying attention in this one. Maybe it was just uninteresting. But I didn't care for it. The reveal that the creature's stalking them and what they were, because they're in the TARDIS and time's all timey-wimey, didn't stun me. I did like seeing more of the interior of the TARDIS, like when Clara stumbles on the Time War book. She's in kind of that library. I do like when we get to see more of the inside of the TARDIS. That's pretty neat. But just the actual story itself didn't grab me at all. And since we get so few episodes with Clara and Matt together, and I love them together, I would have rather have had something else in place of this that I would have actually liked, because I tend to like them together. And that's another point I hold against it. Next on the list is Amy's Choice. Prowl's choice is not to watch it. That is Prowl's choice. I don't get into Amy's Choice a lot. I like the guy playing the Dream Lord. I think his name is Toby. I like him a lot as an actor. He's also really good in the MCU. He does a good job in the role. But just, I never feel invested in this. Because even when you don't know which one's the real reality, I figured it was the one on the TARDIS, but the cop-out that neither of them are, I'm just like, oh, okay, whatever. I never feel invested in the story, because I know one reality is not the real reality. The one where it's 5 years later, Amy's pregnant. I know that's not. I don't know, just something about the execution of this story. I like the fact that it's kind of the story where Amy really learns, where she really chooses Rory over the Doctor, when she really learns how much she cares about him. I guess it's neat for that, but once again, no investment. It's another one I'm like, I could go back and rewatch that one. Yeah. I can think of better things to do. Let's play some more Mass Effect. Next on the list is Dinosaurs on a Spaceship. Now this one, again, I was just going over, I had just broke up with a girl I was dating like 4 or 5 days before this aired. So I was a bit distracted. I can't remember if I was texting her. I feel like I was texting somebody. I don't remember if I was talking to her or somebody else. I feel like I was only half paying attention in this episode. And I didn't really like it anyway. I always feel bad that Brian's dad never got any closure over what happened to Amy and Rory, or Brian, Rory's dad, never got any closure over what happened to Amy or Rory. Like the Doctor never went back and said, hey, this is what happened. So they just kind of disappeared from his life. And as a dad, that's got to be torture. So I really would love some closure for that, and I've never gotten it. And as a result, I tend not to like episodes with Brian in them for the most part, to be honest. I don't really like Series 7A much. And this one's just kind of uninteresting to me. Again, it's probably one I do need to rewatch, to be honest, but I never feel invested in it, which you'll notice is a common theme here. They don't grab me and pull me in. I just tend to not care. So it's hard for me to go back and watch them when I don't care. Next on the list is Let's Kill That Guy. YouTube doesn't like that word. This one I don't really care for either, but I love the concept of the people who are in the robotic suit. I like that idea that they can shapeshift, that they just go around torturing bad people and making them suffer. That's pretty cool because they're bad people. It has some humorous parts in it. I don't really care for River's origin story doesn't really work for me. I'm never invested in Mel since she's introduced here. Now, if they had introduced Mel in Series 5 and played that up, that would have landed better. But as it is here, I just don't really care. Oh, there's your friend we never heard of before. Don't really care. And I like how the people in the robot end up playing into the season finale. That's pretty cool. It's a nice little tie-in. And it does kind of give us a backstory on what's kind of going on. It does give us a little more info on kind of what's happening about the question being asked and all that. What is the question? Unknown. The scene when the Doctor is talking to the TARDIS and it's appearing as different holograms is pretty good. But just overall, I don't really feel invested in this. I feel like it falls flat aside from those few parts. Next on the list is The Angels Take Manhattan. Easily my least favorite of the Angel stories. This one's just ridiculously silly. It has moments, like the guy who has the one chained up at the house when he comes to and all the doors are open and they're slowly coming for him. Love that. But the bit at the beginning with the Empire State Building, not the Empire State Building, the Statue of Liberty is an angel. I'm like, all right, there's a jumping the shark moment right there. That's kind of silly. The plan of the angels I don't really like because, I don't know, it just doesn't work for me. It doesn't seem like the angels' nature to do that. Like they're changing up what they do too much. It never lands for me. Some of the cinematography in the episode looks really good. Like how it's directed looks really good. I don't like the fact it doesn't make sense that the Doctor can't go back and visit them. Why can't he just land somewhere other than New York and go to New York by train? Why can't he land 5 years later and visit them? I mean, they didn't die until the 80s. Why can't he go back into the 50s and go visit them? It doesn't make sense that he can't visit them for one reason or another. He can't visit them because the plot needs him to not be able to visit them. All right, pass. So yeah, I don't get into this one. It's just, I feel like Amy and Rory go out on a whimper. Next one on the list is Praxis. It's boring. It's boring and forgettable. Boring and forgettable. It has a couple neat things, like the people in the hazmat suits with the goggles who are infected look very creepy and chilling in places, and that's pretty neat. I like that. But the episode as a whole, not good. The one guy who gets killed on the beach because he goes too far out onto the beach when they know the birds are killing people, kind of deserved it because he went that far out. Like, why would you do that? I wouldn't do that. Prowl, we need you to check for the birds. Hey, you go check for the birds. We need you to check for the birds. No, you go check for the birds. No, we need you to check for the birds. Okay, I'll check for the birds. Here's Prowl. Opening the door. No birds. I certainly wouldn't walk out, go down the steps, go on to the beach. As long as there's no birds, you're good. But as soon as there are birds, you have to get all the way back. Doesn't make sense to me. I did like the Auton reference in it. That was nice. And then the one girl whose friend gets killed, and she's upset for like 2 seconds. And then she doesn't care for the rest of the episode. She's just like, my friend died. Wonder if I get any of her stuff. And just immediately she's over it. That's some recovery right there. Trust me, fellas, you ever date a girl that recovers from something like that fast? Run. Run. Run fast, run far, run hard, but the key word is run. Yeah, I just don't get into Praxis. It's not that it's bad or that I hate it. It's just utterly forgettable. Almost completely, utterly. Next two on the list are The Girl Who Died and The Woman Who Lived. The Game of Thrones girl episode. The one with the girl from Game of Thrones, Malaysia Williams or whatever her name is. I don't watch Game of Thrones. Which, from what I hear of the final season, is a good thing. The only reason these episodes exist is because, hey, we've got the girl from Game of Thrones. I don't really care for them. There's some neat ideas here. I do love the scene when Capaldi realizes why he has his face, and we get that tie-in with Fires of Pompeii and those flashbacks to Tennant and Donna. That's beautiful. That is lovely. And as I've mentioned before on the channel, the Capaldi era does a really well, I don't know if I want to say good job, but it has this habit of having these really strong moments in not so great stories, sometimes two-parters that are too long. So to have these amazing moments, they're phenomenal. You watch them on YouTube a lot, but they're in these stories that are such a slog to get through, and that's how these are. I also like the fact that it's the girl's imagination that's able to defeat the Vikings or whatever they are. That's pretty neat. Her imagination fuels it. How it drains her like a battery is a sad twist. And the Doctor realizing who he is. You know, I'm the Doctor and I save people. That's cool. Although I do love the realization that he realizes he might have made a mistake. It is another situation of the Doctor doing something here messes him over later, because the Doctor saving her here indirectly leads to Clara's death in Face the Raven. So once again, you have the Doctor thinking he knows more than everybody else, making a mistake that kind of bites him in the butt later. That's interesting. And then I love the idea, which we see in The Woman Who Lived, that while she has this immortality, she only has a human memory, so she can't remember things, so she has to write them down. That's a fascinating concept of only being able to retain so much, being like a hard drive that's run out of space. And you can only form new memories and old ones fade. That's pretty neat. That's fascinating to me. That's an interesting concept. Also, the final shot of the first part, when it does that little zoom around of her as time goes by, is a really cool shot as well. But just overall, I don't engage with these stories. Neither one of them reach out and grab me. Again, I know some people consider these like separate stories, and they kind of are, but for me, they just feel like a two-parter that just runs very long in the tooth. To be fair, I think I've only watched them one time, I think. Maybe more. I think I've only watched them one time. Maybe I need to go back and rewatch them. But I remember not being interested in either one of them, and that's why they fall here on the list. Next on the list is Turn Left. Yes, Turn Left is this low. I don't get into Turn Left. I tend to like stories in alternate realities where things played out differently, and it is kind of neat seeing how things would have played out without the Doctor. And Catherine Tate is nice. She kind of gets her own episode, but it takes away from the Doctor and Donna having another episode together. I love the Doctor and Donna together. They're one of my favorite Doctor companion like duos or TARDIS teams. They're really good together. And one of the reasons I like the 60th anniversary specials is we kind of got 3 more episodes of them together, and I love that. So my biggest problem with Midnight for a long time, actually, and with Turn Left, was that since these episodes each only really focus on one of them, that's an episode we don't get of them together. And that's its biggest crime to me. Also, the linchpin of the episode is that the events play out like this because the Doctor died in the events of Runaway Bride and didn't make it out in time. And I don't think that would happen. I think the Doctor would have gotten out in time. And I do remember in Runaway Bride, Donna saying, "You're good, we can go now," and getting his attention. But I still feel like the Doctor wouldn't have just let himself be so distracted he got killed. It seems silly to me. And since I don't buy what is the linchpin of the episode that holds it together, the whole episode just falls apart for me personally. And because of that, it's not really a fun watch, because I'm sitting here going, no, 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 to the whole thing. So that's why it ranks this low. I just don't buy that one thing, but the whole episode rests on that one thing. And so it falls apart. Next on the list is the Ring of Catan. The Ring of Catan, I don't really get into this one, other than the Doctor's speech. I like his speech. He has a really cool speech he gives there, and it is kind of neat that it's not his past memories that save everything, it's the endless possibilities of Clara with her leave. That's pretty cool. But just, I don't know. Everything leading up to that is uninteresting to me. Also, the design choices of this one. The execution of this one doesn't work. The way the world looks, the thing that's actually just the alarm clock looks funny to me. I don't like the way this one was directed. I think holds it down for me more than the actual story. Plus the actual song they sing, I prefer the instrumental version of it. The instrumental version of it's really good, but the actual lyrics version here, this is another one I've only watched a handful of times. 2 or 3 times, I'd say. I don't really get into it aside from the ending, which is pretty good. And next on the list is Oxygen. I know there's a lot of people who like Oxygen. I never got into it. I think part of it's because The way they kill off that one female character in the opening shot, like, just a little bit of time we get with her and the other guy as they're running around outside, well, floating around outside, was enough to get me invested in them. So when she died, and what a way to die, immediately I felt put off by the episode, which I guess is good writing that they made me care about a character that quickly. And what a way to go when they're there fiddling and you just see the feet land by her and she turns around and is like, oh crap, and you just see the helmet float past the guy. And when he looks back, her and the other two are just coming at it. That's chillingly creepy stuff. The bit about the doctor going blind, never cared for that. The whole jab at capitalism, it all comes down to the suits. I guess that's kind of funny. But after I laugh, I'm like, eh. The whole episode, I still don't understand how Bill sort of died but didn't die. Like, she got shocked like the others but didn't die. I don't remember. I think I've only watched the episode the one time, but I felt so put off by it. I've never wanted to go back to it. It's just another one of those episodes that never grabbed me. It is one I think deserves a rewatch, though. At some point, I will have to go back through Oxygen, even though I'm not looking forward to that. But it deserves a rewatch. Next on the list, and I'm very surprised it's this far up the list, is Legend of the Sea Devils. This one could have been a good story. I've talked about this before. Its biggest problem seems to be its editing. I have never seen a Doctor Who story that just looks like it was destroyed in the edit, the way Legends of the Sea Devils was. I would love to know a behind the scenes of what exactly happened with this episode, because there's just some of it that doesn't make any sense. Like the scene when all the trained, sea devils with swords, who are trained with swords, are about to fight Dan, and Dan takes a sword and he just knocks them all down and go, ah, ah. You just see him, ah, ah, and they all fall down, and I'm like, that's not how sword fighting works. I'm going to have to remember that if I'm ever surrounded by trained swordsmen. Got him. The Dan technique. It doesn't make sense. And I don't know what was up with it. If it was originally supposed to be longer, some of the effects look a little weird. The bit when the Sea Devil jumps up onto the ship, I'm like, okay, Sea Devils can do that now. I love the YouTube video where somebody shows that and they added in the sound of Mario jumping like, eh, eh. It's hilarious. I can't unhear it now if I watch that again, I'm sure. I love the fact they kept the classic Sea Devil design. Props for that. I love the fact the Sea Devils look like the Sea Devils. Mad props for that. But I don't know. The editing feels so clunky here that it makes it a hard watch. Better than the stuff we've talked about so far. I really think if this episode was made the way it was originally intended to be made, it would have been a lot better. I feel like something happened. Maybe it was originally supposed to be an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and a half, or something. Probably not an hour and a half, but longer than it was. And then somehow it just got chopped up to where I think it's either the length of a regular episode or close to it, because I don't even think it's an hour. I feel like a lot of it got lost in the edit somehow. Next on the list, and I can't believe it's this high either, is The Power of Three, which is terrible, make no bones about it, even worse than some of the stuff we talked about. But it has two good moments I really like in it. One, the bit when the 11th Doctor is bored and trying to kill time. Just watching the 11th Doctor try to sit and relax and live in linear time is hilarious. So he's doing all this stuff, bouncing the ball, which Matt Smith did play soccer when he was growing up, or football, if y'all prefer to call it that, until an injury kind of took him out of that. So it was nice to see him showing off his soccer skills. And then for him to sit down and it's only like maybe an hour has passed, and he's like, how do y'all stand it? I do love that scene a lot. Also, the introduction of Kate Stewart, who is very good in this episode. She got kind of progressively worse, although recently she's been getting progressively better. But she's very good in this first story. And I do, of course, love the scene when, the Doctor tells her, don't lose hope, Kate. Your dad never did. That's a beautiful, beautiful scene. It's very touching to the Brigadier. So those two scenes kind of make it land this high. And it is kind of nice to see companions having to sort through, okay, you know, we have our regular life and we have doctor life. We're going to have to pick one. Stuck in that dilemma of, do we keep traveling with the doctor or do we, you know, move on with our lives? I actually do love that they explore that. I just wish it was in a better episode, because the actual plot of the episode is uninteresting, boring, and quite frankly kind of dumb. And how come nobody ever remembers the boxes? How come things happen on Earth and nobody ever remembers that things happen on Earth, alien related? It just kind of gets brushed aside. So the next time something alien related happens, all of Earth people are like, oh! That's happened one too many times in modern Who for my suspension of disbelief to stand it. Though to be fair, that happens sometimes in classic Who too. Next on the list is the Zygon two-parter, The Invasion and the Inversion. It's too long. The only reason it's this high is the speech. The speech is so good. It's another moment, like I talked about earlier, of Capaldi having this phenomenal scene, this great scene, one of the best speeches in all of Doctor Who. A phenomenal piece, and Capaldi nails it. He nails it. But it's stuck in a story that drags. It's so uninteresting. I find Clara uninteresting. I find fake Clara uninteresting. I find the story with the Zygons all uninteresting. I like the fact they brought them back for the 50th. Didn't need to see them again for another 20, 30 years. Honestly. Did not need that. The story is just boring for me. It's uninteresting. Him being president of Earth in emergencies. Or was that this one? I get confused on some of these sometimes. The cliffhanger with the plane falling is, I think is that the one where he has to get into the Tardis? I don't know. I mix up some of these. I just remember this one being way too long and way uninteresting. Although the twist when the one unit lady and her troops figure out that Clara's not Clara and they get ambushed and they all get killed. Brutal stuff. Thumbs up. Next on the list is the Witchfinders. And again, it's just a couple little things that make this rank this high, because I don't really care for this one. But I love Alan playing King James. He's hilarious. That's the best part of the episode, is him as King James, because King James is hilarious. Just the way Alan plays him is phenomenally good. The episode is watchable on that alone. Love that. And then the woman playing the main antagonist before and after she transforms, she's really good. The actress. I don't really care for the character, but the actress playing her does a really good job. I got to give props to her. Other than that, story-wise, I didn't get it. I didn't really like the makeup on the mud women, like the woman whose aunt or something died. The mud, I didn't like looking at it. It just looked disgusting. I didn't like it. That kind of put me off to the episode. And then just story-wise, I was kind of like, ho-hum, whatever. And I love the fact that King James keeps hitting on Ryan. I don't know why. I just think that's absolutely hilarious, and Ryan doesn't quite know how to deal with it. That's also hilarious. Much like when someone's hitting on the Doctor and the Doctor doesn't know how to deal with it. I find things like that funny. Those kind of awkward situations are just funny to me. So it ranks this high off those small points, but for the most part, I don't enjoy this one. There's actually some of the ones we've talked about already. I, from a story point of view, prefer more. Next on the list is the Caretaker. I don't get into this one. One, I don't like Danny Pink. No offense to the actor playing him, even though he doesn't really impress me either. But I just never liked Danny Pink as a character. I never buy the relationship between him and Clara. I never buy it. They just, to me, they don't seem compatible at all. I don't know why. I just never buy them together. The friction between him and Danny Pink, I don't get either. I never understand the Doctor's thing against soldiers. It never made sense to me. And their little banter of, you're just a soldier. Yes, sir, I do, sir. I never buy any of that. I think the actual creature in the story looks fun. It looks more like something out of Sarah Jane Adventures. But I like the fact it doesn't look threatening. It just looks like something out of a Japanese cartoon or something. That's kind of funny to me. I like how annoyed the Doctor is that Danny messed up his original plan, so he's got to set it up again. That's kind of funny. I never get into this one. It seems uninteresting, and again, there's a lot of character beats that just do nothing for me in it. And the next one on the list, and I can't believe it's this high up, is In the Forest of the Night. And we are still, let me be clear before we talk about In the Forest of the Night, we are still at a point where I can say every single episode we have talked about in this list so far, which is almost 30 episodes, almost 30 episodes in, we are still at episodes that are worse than every single episode of classic Doctor Who. Every single classic Doctor Who story is better than every story we've talked about so far on the list. Delta and the Bannermen is better. Power of Kroll is better. And remember who's saying that. Power of Kroll is better. The Web Planet is better. The Chase, except maybe episode 4, is better. Every single classic Who story is better than everything we've talked on the list up to this point, including this story. That's how low modern Who gets compared to classic Doctor Who. While classic Doctor Who has its ups and downs, it never has downs like these. Excavating the tar pits we are here. So In the Forest of the Night is still terrible. It is bad. It is boring. It is uninteresting. It is uninspired. The plants grow to protect the planet. And then they go back to normal. And I still don't understand the thing about the one girl's sister who's suddenly alive. I still have no idea what's going on with that. She just appears and I'm like, somebody could come up to me and be like, so what happened there? And I'd be like, no idea what's happening with that. Again, we get more of Danny Pink. Hooray. The little bit when they're in the zoo area is kind of interesting. I don't know why I seem to remember liking that. I think I've seen this episode twice, I think. This is another one of those, how did this get made? How did this get made? How did this get made? And why is it this high on the list now that I'm thinking about it? I don't even know why this high on the list. There are other episodes we talked about, surely that are better than this, at least have something in them. I don't know why this is this high on the list. Maybe it's just because everything we talked about on the list is some degree of bad. We still haven't reached where we would be talking about Classic Who if it was a list of all Doctor Who. We might be close, but we wouldn't be there yet. This one's just terrible. And the next one's on the list is, what is it? Dark Water and Death in Heaven. The Series 8 finale. I don't get into it. Again, they're not necessarily bad. I just don't really get into them. First off, I love Michelle Gomez as Missy. I always love Michelle Gomez as Missy. She is great. She's one of my favorite versions of the Master. I think her portrayal of Missy is just phenomenally good. I love her and Capaldi together in this story. It's a great reveal that she is, of course, the newest version of the Master at the time. I think the actors have good chemistry. Her and Peter have good chemistry together. I like them together, and I like their characters together on screen. I think the cliffhanger for part 1 is good. How you see the Cybermen walking out, is kind of reminiscent of the invasion, and I like that. The whole thing about Danny dying, great, fantastic, loving that. The whole bit about them going to hell or wherever people go when they die to find him is... I mean, it's Doctor Who. Anything can happen in Doctor Who, but even that, I'm like, stretch, stretch, stretch. I don't really get into that. The reveal of the Cybermen being made slaves to the Master, Missy, I really don't like that. I really, really don't like that. It's, again, the Cybermen being screwed over. I've talked about that already. It's another episode that doesn't get the Cybermen right. The idea of all the dead people being turned into Cybermen, I don't really like. Now, the Cyber Brig bit with the Cyber Brig, I don't actually mind. That doesn't bother me. I think it's a nice little touch. I know some people have issues with it. I don't. Could mean the Cyber Brig is still out there doing something somewhere. Who knows? It was a nice little touch. I liked it. But yeah, the episode just kind of feels uninspired. The bit where Clara pretends to be the Doctor, where she actually goes, I'm the Doctor. I'm sitting here going. And then the opening credits even show her eyes. I'm still going. Because I really hate the whole Clara Who thing. And this just feeds into that. And I'm going, oh. Clara really was the first female Doctor officially in the show. Honestly, let's be honest. So yeah, it's just kind of boring and uninteresting overall. Yeah, that's just, I don't hate it. I don't really like it. It's just kind of, it's there. Next on the list is Rosa. Now, Rosa, from a story point of view, deserves to be higher. And I will admit Rosa is a good episode, especially for someone in the UK who is not familiar with the events, for them to learn about the historical events. I have it this low because I have my own personal problems with it. It's one of the most racist episodes of Doctor Who ever made for me. Subjectively, from my point of view, as someone who was born in the States, in the South, raised in the South. I live in the South. I have an issue with how it portrays people in the South, specifically the white people in the South, because while there were indeed some white people like that in the South at the time, not everyone was like that, to where they either were actively racist or they just kind of ducked their head to what was going on around them. That was not the case. That just blatantly was not the case. And the fact that the episode portrays them in this cartoonish manner, this very stereotypical manner, that if it had been done with anyone else would have been blatantly considered racist, but they got away with it because, well, and especially since this is an episode that aired in 2018 when people should know better, quite frankly. I have huge issue with it because of that, because it's blatantly the most racist episode of Doctor Who I've ever seen. I don't understand how anyone could, blow their trumpets about how amazing this episode is, while again trying to tell me the Celestial Toymaker is racist, which it isn't. This blatantly is. Now, again, I think the message in it, the overall message, is good, and the actress playing Rosa Parks in it is phenomenally good. Let me be clear. I actually really enjoy her in that episode. She's really, really good in it. The guy playing the main bad guy in it's a bit uninspired. I'll be honest, he doesn't really do much for me in it. He's just kind of, to be honest. Nothing on the actor. The character is not written with much depth, which I think is kind of the point to him, to be fair. He's supposed to be kind of a character who doesn't have a lot of deep thought in him, actually. It's a very meta thing, come to think of it. And I enjoy the fact that the Doctor being there doesn't take away from Rosa's moment. It is still Rosa's moment. I really think they had to thread that needle, and they do it well. But my problem with it is my own subjective problems with it due to where I was born, raised, and lived. The same way I'm never going to be able to look at how black people are portrayed in Doctor Who the same way, say, a black person would, because I'm not. I don't have that same lens to look through it. Or someone, I don't have any problems with Talons, whereas maybe someone of Oriental descent might, because they're looking at it from a different lens than I do, possibly. But my problems with Rosa are big, to the point to where I can't rewatch it. It's literally just unwatchable for me. Because of that, I just find it so offensive. It needs a warning at the beginning of it. If Talons is going to get one, this one needs one. But I still think it's objectively a good episode for the message it's trying to communicate. Anyway. Next on the list is the Rebel Flesh and the Almost People, the two-parter from Series 6. This one isn't bad, and I used to like it more. For some reason, even I've seen this one multiple times, several times actually. I love the Doppelganger Doctor. I love when he goes through the different voices when he first shows up. I love the twist with him and the real Doctor at the end with the shoes. I didn't see that coming. I like that. It kind of shows Amy's own prejudices. I like that. And while I think the guest cast are fine, I don't know why. Maybe it's, again, just being a two-parter, it feels like it drags. I definitely like the idea of it. The idea of the gangers basically becoming sentient and rebelling. Especially like the fact that the one girl the actual girl is really nice and sweet and soft-spoken, where her ganger is twisted and dark and the most evil of them all. That's interesting to me. And so, I don't know why it doesn't quite work for me now, because on paper it should. I like everything about how it's written. Just for some reason, it's not one I go back to anymore. Maybe, again, it's just being a two-parter. Whereas Classic Who, long stories don't really bother me. For some reason, two-parters in Modern Who don't always work for me, especially since Part 2 usually doesn't live up to Part 1. But in this case, neither one of them, for some reason, just blow me away. I can't quite put my finger on it. But for some reason, this one just doesn't wow me the way I feel it should. Next on the list is the Ascension of the Cybermen. I don't really have a lot to say on this one. I need to go back and rewatch it. I like the little nods to beginning to previous Dalek weaknesses like radiation and gold, even though they don't really get to use it. There's a little nod in there I like. I like the new Cyberman design a lot. I think it's a really neat design. I like the lone Cyberman. He's really cool. I think it's neat how the companions have to disguise themselves as Cybermen. Ooh, icky. But that's pretty neat. And I do love the bit at the end with the Master showing up. That's pretty cool when he just pops out of the portal. That's pretty neat and unexpected. I really need to go back and give this one another watch, but I remember liking it well enough. But since it ties into Timeless Children, which is bad, it kind of hurts it retroactively, and it just kind of falls here. Next on the list is the pilot, which I've only seen once or twice. It's okay. It doesn't blow me away. It's a great introduction for Bill, and I like Heather as well, and I like the bond between them. The idea of the creature that kind of bonds with Heather is weird. The fact it can track Bill, like, anywhere, across time, across space, that's a little weird and overpowered for me, and surprising, but that's interesting. I like kind of seeing the 12th Doctor and Bill kind of get to know each other. I love the scene when we actually get to see some of the Dalek-Movellan War. That's a nice callback to Destiny, seeing the Movellans fighting and getting slaughtered, which is weird because at one point the Movellans were winning the war. But apparently the Daleks adapted like the Daleks do, and they're just waxing the Movellans. But I did enjoy that callback a lot. So yeah, that's just really all I kind of remember about this one. It's another one that needs a rewatch. It's just kind of where it falls for now. Next on the list is The Woman Who Fell to Earth. Whitaker's first story. I'm always a little kinder towards this one fresh off a rewatch for some reason. The special effects look very good. I will say that. Tim Shaw is not a very impressive villain. He's kind of uninteresting. I mean, if his people were supposed to be the next big bad, it didn't work. He's just not, nah. And I call him Tim Shaw because that is kind of funny, I will admit. The one guy who, whose sister was kidnapped is an idiot. I talked about this recently when I was ranking the Whitaker era. He's dumb. He kind of deserved what happened to him. Because you go through all this trouble to prepare for this thing that took your sister, and you don't have any way to, defend yourself. I mean, the guy obviously must have had some money. He paid to get the thing there. He had all the cameras set up. And he doesn't think, maybe I should at least get like a stick with a nail in it or something, a gun, a tank, something. He just grabbed this wrench here. Yeah, when he died, I was like, okay, buddy, you kind of had that coming. It's like you were poking the bear, daring it to do something, except you were poking it with your finger. So, it's a nice introduction to the companions, and I liked Grace as well. I thought the actress who played Grace was really good. Whitaker didn't really impress me much. I love the scene when she makes her screwdriver. I do absolutely love watching her make her screwdriver. That's pretty cool. But her moment when she's kind of supposed to be what's supposed to be her doctor moment, when she's confronting Tim Shaw about, now leave this planet while you still have a choice. It's one of what another YouTuber calls her try-hard speeches, and I've definitely adopted that term because it fits. It's very much this try-hard speech. It doesn't land for me. Plus, her resolution sets up the problem in the battle of something or another, with her sending him away and the people he goes to worship him. So she kind of sets up her own problems here. And then she almost gets her companions killed. Again. This also happens in the Subaru conundrum. We'll get to that. Yes, twice in her first season, she almost gets herself and all of her companions killed. And the only reason they don't die is someone just happens to pick them up out of the blue. Because, she teleports all of them, not meaning teleport all of them, and they end up in space. And the only reason they don't die horribly is someone just happens to come along and pick them up. You'll hear this topic come up again when we talk about Subaru conundrum. Yeah, the 13th Doctor, there's a lot of failure. There's a lot of failure going on. And this was the start of that. Next on the list is Listen. Listen is this high on the list because the episode, before you get to the ending, is very promising the first time you watch it. It sets up a neat mystery. I think the cinematography of it is really good. It's directed very well. It sets up the mystery of what is it they're hearing, what is the Doctor onto. I like the idea of something like this that you don't know is there. Something under the bed. I love the mystery of it. Capaldi's putting in such a good performance. The bit with the descendant of Danny Pink, which really doesn't make sense now. Hearing something knocking on the outside. The thing under the cover. All of that is really good, and that's why it's this high. Why it's not any higher is the ending sucks and kind of ruins the whole episode. The fact is just the Doctor scared of something under the bed from when he was a child, and it's all Clara's fault. It's just the Doctor. This is where we see the start of Clara Who. The worst thing to ever happen to the show. Worse than the Timeless Children, in my opinion. I hate Clara Who. You know, he's telling her, do as you're told, and then she's telling him, well, you do as you're told. You have to leave without looking, and it's just so annoying. She's so stuck up and uppity and bitchy, really, to be honest with her. I can't stand that. Ooh. I don't know what Danny saw in her. Good God, I'd run for the hills. But yeah, I don't like that. The whole ending of it with her little speech about fear is a superpower. I don't like it. Like, this is literally one of the worst moments to me in all of Doctor Who. I hate it, and it just ruined the whole episode for me. That's why it's not any higher. Just to find out it was all, maybe the thing under the cover was just a kid under the bed, and the Doctor was afraid of it. I don't know if I've ever seen a better way to ruin an episode than Listen. Next on the list is the return of Dr. Mysterio. Again, I'm a little kinder to this one after a rewatch. I don't really care for it. First off, the superhero costume looks cheap. Looks like something you wear for Halloween. The cast is fine. The idea of the brain creatures is cool. You know, there's something about body horror and possession that's inherently creepy. Something taking you over and then using you against everything else. And the scene when the one guy, you know, when the professor's confronting the one guy who kind of runs the company. Yes, that's the Doctor's brain up there. We need you. And you see the eyes on the brain. That's chilling stuff. Makes you wonder what happened there since the one got away and into the unit soldier. I wonder how that'll play, if that ever played out in, like, Sarah Jane Adventures or something. Oh, I don't think so. Elizabeth passed away. I wonder if we'll ever see that again. But yeah, it feels like Doctor Who tries to do the superhero genre. And overall, I'm not a big fan of it. I do like the Doctor's speech at the end. His speech about everything ends and it's sad, but everything begins again. And, you know, that's whatever he says there. That's awesome, exciting, whatever it is he says. I love that speech. It's a great speech. That's happy, you know, be happy. I do love that speech. That speech is probably, that little bit right there is probably the reason it ranks this high. I do love that sentiment a lot, especially with it being right after he lost River. Capaldi really sells it. So it's got some neat stuff going on, but ultimately I find it uninteresting. Next on the list is the Eaters of Light. This one I liked more on last rewatch. The actual story is pretty good. The execution isn't perfect. The creature, I don't know why they tried to make it look like it came out of Tron. They could have gone for a more horror vibe with it and made it like something out of like H.P. Lovecraft or something. Really made it menacing and scary. Instead, they kind of go for this fantasy Tron look, which I think could detract from the story a bit. We get a little bit of, I don't want to say agenda pushing because I don't like that. With the Roman soldiers talking with the like what you like, which doesn't really need to be there. To be fair, I don't really find it bothersome, to be clear. But it does seem a little out of place, like maybe a scene that should have been deleted and just left on as a bonus on the DVD set. I don't feel like it advances the plot. I think it's there just to remind you that Bill likes girls, which is fine that she likes girls, but they don't have to bring it up like every 10 seconds. It just felt a little out of place and like filler for the episode. The guest cast are fine. I enjoyed it well enough. I liked the ending. The special effects look good. I enjoyed it overall more than when I watched it before. I think it's a bit of an underrated episode. And the last one we're going to be talking about for today is The Fires of Pompeii. I don't have a strong rewatchability for this one. It's nice that we get Peter Capaldi in it, and Peter Capaldi and his family are good in it. I like it. The notion that the Doctor has to cause Pompeii, okay, interesting. Yeah, of course, it's a big historical event. Of course the Doctor was there, because apparently he's at all of those now. The CGI on the creatures has not aged the best, which, you know, as someone who likes classic Who fans, I can roll with that. But for some reason, bad practical effects age better to me than bad CGI effects. That's just me, I guess. Like, I can handle green bubble wrap way better than I can handle what's going on with these creatures in the Fires of Pompeii. I do like the nod back to the Romans in it about the Fire of Rome. That's a pretty nice little moment. I love the scene how she convinced Donna convinces the Doctor to go back and save someone. At least that's pretty neat. The bit about how people get kind of petrified and turned to stone through their psychic abilities is pretty neat. The foreshadowing to turn left there is pretty cool. And the bit about she is returning. It's got some nice little moments in it. I just not one I really go back to. Series 4 is a good series, but I do think it's a bit overrated in places, to be honest. And that's where we're going to end part 1. I'd like to know what you think of the list so far and what you think of the episodes we've talked about. Comment down below and let me know. Don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button and the bell for notifications so you never miss out on another video. I also have YouTube memberships available, and a link to my Patreon is down in the description if you would like to support me on either of those. I want to give a shout out to some of my top tier patrons, Stephen Crane, Colin Coney, and Finn Perkins. I appreciate your support, as I do the support of all of my patrons. It does make a difference, and it is appreciated. I also have a P.O. box if there's anything you'd like to send me to look at and review, Doctor Who related or otherwise. It is a sci-fi channel after all. I also have links to my Amazon wish list on there as well. Most importantly, thank you for watching.